past decade, I have moved 9 times, and every time I move, my workspace changes based on how much room I have. Now, I've rented single bedrooms, the upper floor of a house, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, a townhome, and now I rent a 3-bedroom house. Redesigning my workspace is one of the highlights of moving each time. And in this video, I want to share with you what I've learned from this process, as well as the current state of my own studio. Now, whether you are looking to build your first home office or just making some upgrades to your current setup, I think it's worth making a plan. I'm going to share with you the 3 pillars of a successful workspace. And the best part is they can be incorporated into any budget. So with that, let's take a look at my own studio to see how I have incorporated these 3 pillars. So pillar number 1 is function. And while we all want our home offices to look good, the first pillar of designing the best home office is function over form. Start by identifying the things that you need to do every day and every week for your work. Then consider ways to streamline these processes. The solutions you come up with will play a key role in the design of your space. So for my work, I teach designers how to render with Keyshot. Before that, I was a freelance render artist. Now, my time is spent mostly making tutorials for my YouTube channel, paid courses, and content for my website. Now, I designed my studio to help streamline this entire process. For me, having the right tools goes a really long way. I use 2 high-performance PCs. The older one I built by myself in late 2017. It's got a 32-core Gen 2 AMD Threadripper CPU, as well as 2 1080 Ti GPUs and 64 gigs of RAM. Now, this was the first and will probably be the last PC I ever built by myself. The newer one was provided by Puget Systems. It's got a 3rd gen 32-core AMD Threadripper CPU, 2 2080 Ti GPUs, and 128 gigs of RAM. Now, having both computers is great because when one is busy rendering a project, the other one allows me to work on other stuff. And for a more time-sensitive project, I can combine them and they can render together. Also, if one of them fails, I have a backup. Now, they're each powered by APC smart, uninterruptible power supplies, which provide clean, consistent power and protect against power surges. And in the event of a power outage, they have large batteries that continue to power my computers, giving me enough time to safely power everything down. Both of my computers have identical internal storage configurations, and I use a Synology DS420 Plus NAS, a network-attached storage device, to keep the files synced across these 2 machines. Now, in the future, I'd love to upgrade to a faster server with 10 gigabit connections and work completely off of it, but for now, my setup works just fine. To the right of my NAS, I have a Focusrite Scarlett 4x4 audio interface. This is how I connect my microphone and speakers to my computers. Placed on top of that is an 8-port Netgear Ethernet switch, which allows me to connect the 2 computers, the NAS, the router, and Philips Hue bridge. Above that, I have a DBX286 mic preamp and processor. This helps me cut out background noise and record cleaner vocals when creating my videos. On top of that, I've got an AC Infinity power distribution unit. This basically gives me a master switch to turn power on or off to everything, except for my router and modem, which I leave always on. Now, all this equipment is housed inside a 12U Middle Atlantic desktop rack. And as you would expect, there are tons of cables that need to be connected to make all of this work. Now, I made a simple Lazy Susan out of plywood and a heavy-duty bearing. This allows me to rotate the entire stack of equipment, which weighs over 300 pounds. It gives me easy access to all the ports for wiring and cable management in the back. So when the computers are rendering, I also like to rotate the stack to allow for better cooling. Now, above the tech tower, as I like to call it, I have a shelf that holds an ASUS ROG AC5300 Wi-Fi router and a standard modem from Spectrum. Each piece of equipment in my tech tower plays a critical role in keeping me productive by reducing downtime and offering backups and safety nets in the event of data loss or power failure. I also use a cloud-based backup service called Backblaze to keep a copy of all my data safe in the event of a disaster. Continuing on with the theme of function, I've designed this room to improve the audio and visual quality of my videos. If you've ever seen studio lights, then you probably know they take up a lot of floor space, and they tend to use large diffusers to create soft lighting. In order to save space, I use a couple of compact LED panels that I've mounted to a large tension rod that's called a varipole. To create soft lighting, I use a large piece of diffusion fabric that I've added grommets to. So when I'm ready to film, I just hang this from 2 eye hooks in the ceiling. It's not the prettiest, but it does work well. Now I take a similar approach to my audio by hanging a cheap moving blanket from the tension rod right behind my lights. I added grommets to the blanket, and then I actually made hooks from Velcro and bent push pins, which are just wrapped around the varipole. So this cuts down on reverb in the room when I'm recording my vocals. I have another LED for a hair light mounted right behind my backdrop, and another backdrop light mounted on a tension rod between my bookshelves closer to the floor. If you've ever tried recording audio in a small boxy room, then you probably know it can be hard to get a clear professional sound. Also to help with this, I've mounted foam on the walls. Now this can be tricky to do without ruining your walls. I found the best approach is to buy large pieces of foam, like 2x4 feet, and then use a few small nails to attach them to the wall. The holes are easy to patch and the foam doesn't get damaged. I've been able to save a few bucks by reusing my acoustic foam each time I move. Now on the wall to the left of me, I use a large blackout curtain to block daylight from the windows and cut down on reverb in the room for controlling both light and audio when recording my videos. I use the same approach for the backdrop, which is a thick fleece-like material that absorbs both sound and light. I've taken this route for sound treatment and backdrop because I don't own this house. Everything I do in here needs to be easily removed with little or no damage. Making our way to my desk, you'll see a simple, clean setup. I use a 34-inch Dell ultra-wide monitor from 2016, I believe. It allows me to record videos in 16:9 aspect ratio at 1440p while still leaving a bit of real estate off screen. I appreciate the extra width as well for editing my videos and working on multiple documents at the same time. And because it's not too small, I can still record myself from over the top of the monitor just by moving it out of the way. So when I sit down to record a video, the camera and mic are already in place, ready to go. I just move my monitor down, launch OBS, which is what I use to record. I then look into the teleprompter and just start speaking. The teleprompter makes it easy for me to read from a script, which helps keep me speaking accurately and concisely. I use a 5.5-inch FeelWorld field monitor as a second computer display. This allows me to drag a window, application, or a Zoom chat right onto that monitor. I can then see the information on the screen without breaking eye contact from my camera, which records me from behind the glass. Now I got this idea from DSLR video shooter, and I'll link his video all about this setup down below. I use a Sony a7 III for my camera with a Tamron 28 to 75mm lens to record and a Rode NTG3B shotgun mic for my audio. The teleprompter is by Glide Gear, and all this is supported by some cheap monitor arms that I modified to meet my needs. This arm is also attached to my monitor stand, which is a heavy-duty desk mount monitor arm by Ergotron. Now, as you might expect, it requires quite a bit of cable management to keep all of this tidy, and I do my best to group cables where I can, use cable sleeves, as well as a wire rack and power strip underneath my desk to keep the mess out of sight. Now, this large neoprene sleeve bundles all the cables that run between my tech tower and my desk. Without running wires through the floor, this is probably the best I could do to keep things tidy. Now, I'll point out that I use a KVM switch to use the same keyboard, mouse, and monitor with both computers. I've mounted the button here to the side of one of my computers, and when I press it, the mouse, keyboard, and monitor simply switch to the other tower. In the past, I had this button mounted under my desk, which was really nice, but at this time, I kept it near the tech tower just to reduce the amount of cables I would have to run all the way to my desk. As you can see, I've put a lot of time, thought, and energy into designing my space that helps support my professional goals. It took me a long time to get all this dialed in, but I love the result and it's been well worth the effort. I'm able to record my videos much faster and maintain consistency in both audio and video quality. Most importantly, it takes away any effort associated with setting up and tearing down whenever I want to record. The second pillar of a great home office is comfort. The goal isn't to fall asleep, rather, if you're comfortable in your workspace, I believe you'll tolerate being in there much longer. I found that being able to adjust my workspace keeps me both comfortable and healthy and reduces the likelihood of repetitive strain injury. About 4 years ago, I bought a Herman Miller embodied chair. With how much time I spend sitting, I wanted a chair that would support my body, be comfortable, and would last for at least 10 years. After testing many chairs, this is the one I felt most comfortable in and could be adjusted to meet my needs. Now, I suffered a back injury in about 2015, and since then I've tried to limit the time I spend seated. My desk is actually a sit-stand desk that I made by attaching an IKEA Carlby countertop to a set of motorized Jarvis desk legs. This allows me to work while standing, which I do for about 3 hours a day. Now, the tricky thing about using a standing desk is cable management and placement of equipment. By choosing to place my speakers, camera, microphone, everything on the desk, everything moves together as a single unit. My keyboard of choice is the F96 wireless mechanical keyboard by Acoustics. I wanted a model with a keypad since I use them so often. Now, the quality and typing experience on this is great, and even though it took a little getting used to the compact layout, I really enjoy it. The mouse I use is a Logitech MX Master 2S. My favorite features about this mouse are the clutch scroll wheel and the programmable thumb buttons. That said, I am interested in trying out the vertical version of this mouse. The speakers I use are the A5Xs by Atom Audio. Now, I just got these in thanks to my friend Alex at Focusrite, and I have to say they really do sound incredible. For the price, I don't think they can be beat. Now, they're sitting on Soundrise Pro 9 monitor stands, and I love how little room these stands take up on my desk. They give me a lot of access to put things down below. Now, depending on my mood and what I'm working on, I tend to listen to a wide range of film scores, audiobooks, podcasts, and music. Lately, I've really been enjoying those long playlists that mix relaxing music and ambient sounds, and when listening to these on great speakers, it only makes the experience better. Now, I replaced the lights in the ceiling fan above me with Philips Hue bulbs. The lights on my backdrop are also Hue bulbs. Between controlling the brightness and color of the lights and lighting candles, I often change up the light in my room to try to stay comfortable. The addition of oil diffusers and scented candles also helps me create a calm and comfortable vibe that keeps me focused on my work. And as much as I love plants, I really don't get enough sunlight in this room to keep them healthy, so I don't actually keep any of them in here long term. The more comfortable I make my space, the more time I actually want to spend working in it. So be sure to make your space comfortable to you and your particular sense of taste, and ignore what's trendy and design it for yourself. The third and final pillar of a great home office is focus. While this may seem obvious, it's something I've tried to pay more attention to lately. With social media and technology eroding our ability to focus on a single task, it's important to remove distractions that divide your attention. If you want to learn more about these topics, I highly recommend the following books: Deep Work and Digital Minimalism, both by Cal Newport, super good books. I found that when I stopped multitasking and learned to focus without distractions, my work has gotten far better and I get done with it a lot faster. One of the best and most underrated tools for increasing focus is to clear your space of clutter. I tend to keep just a few things on my desk at a time. Since about 2014, I've been using the large Moleskine Taskmaster Pro notebooks. They have the best combination of blank and daily planning pages that I've come across. I use them to plan my days, monthly goals, to take notes, and to sketch out ideas. Also on my desk is a leather tray that I got as a gift quite a few years ago. Anything I want at an arm's length, I keep in here. Continuing with the theme of organization, I can't focus if my office is a mess. By having a place for everything, I'm able to quickly find whatever I'm looking for. However, the benefits go beyond just organization. A tidy workspace looks professional. And when working in a professional space, subconsciously, I am motivated to remain focused. This is done by using plastic bins and boxes and just using a label maker to ensure that everything has a place. If you're not fortunate enough to have a quiet place to work, then I can definitely recommend some noise-canceling earphones. These Gen 2 Bose QC35s were a lifesaver when I traveled a lot for work and when I lived in the noisy city of Brooklyn, New York. Now I mostly put them on when I need an extra level of focus. While they're a little bit on the expensive side, I do think they're worth the money. Finally, I like to surround myself with things that I find inspiring. For me, that's mostly artwork and books. Now, I've avoided collecting too much of them because books are heavy and artwork can be fragile, and I've moved a lot. So, on the wall behind my computer, I have a prized limited edition Charlie Adler poster from one of my favorite films, 28 Days Later, as well as an iconic design by concept vehicle designer Daniel Simon. On top of my bookshelves, you'll find some of my favorite things, including gifts from friends. There's the Walking Dead Compendium, a vintage Sid Mead calendar, a photo book of NASA products, and other things that I think deserve to be seen. Within the bookshelves are old sketchbooks of mine, design and art books, books about rendering and business. My book collection is pretty modest though, since I usually listen to books on my phone using the Audible or Libby app. Having an environment that's inspiring helps me sustain my focus, as well as to find my focus when I'm feeling lost or uninspired. So, to recap, the 3 pillars of a great home office are function, comfort, and focus. I believe if you let these guide your design process, you'll be able to create an amazing space that supports both your work and your goals. And if you're overwhelmed by the examples in this video, remember this. Most of us begin with a modest setup, and over time, it grows to accommodate our needs. Since I run my own business out of my office, almost all of my equipment is considered a business asset or expense. So understand that my home studio has been something that I've built slowly, and it's a collection of tools that allows me to earn a living and enjoy myself along the way. So with that, I hope you found this video inspiring, or at the very least, entertaining. Until next time, happy rendering.